Albert Bandura was born in Bandura, Alberta in 1925. He was the youngest of 6 kids. In his hometown, there was only one school and limited resources, including teachers, so he was mostly self-taught. Regardless of his limited resources as a child, he attended the University of British Columbia. There, he took an introductory psychology course because it fit well into a school schedule. That is when he first became obsessed with the subject. He graduated 3 years later in 1949 with the Bolokin Award in Psychology. After, he went to the University of Iowa to complete his graduate work. In 1951, he completed his master's, followed with a PhD in 1952 in clinical psychology. He is currently working as a faculty member at Stanford University at the age of 91, while still doing research on self-efficacy and stress reactions.
He and his wife Virginia have been married since 1952. They have 2 daughters and identical twin grandsons. Bandura formulated the social learning theory that implies concepts of the transitional learning theory and operant conditional theory from B.F. Skinner. However, he adds 2 important ideas. The first idea is observational learning, where behavior is learned from the environment. Individuals that are observed are called models. In society, children are surrounded by many influential models, such as parents within the family, characters on children's TV, friends within their peer groups, and teachers within their school.
These models provide examples of behavior to observe and imitate. Children pay attention to some of these people and encode their behavior. At a later time, they may imitate the behavior they have observed. Observational learning explains the nature of children to learn behaviors by watching the behavior of the people around them and eventually imitating them.
In his most famous experiment, the bubble doll, he included an adult who was tasked to act aggressively towards the bubble doll while the children observed him. Later, Bandura let the children play inside a room with the bubble doll. He affirmed that these children imitated the aggressive behavior towards the doll which they had observed earlier. After his studies, Bandura was able to determine 3 basic models of observational learning, which include:
First, a child is more likely to attempt to imitate those people he or she perceives as similar to themselves. Consequently, it is more likely to imitate the behavior modeled by the people of the same sex. Second, the people around the child will respond to the behavior he or she imitates with either reinforcement or punishment. If a child imitates a model's behavior and the consequences are rewarding, the child is likely to continue performing the behavior. Third, the child will also take into account of what happens to other people when deciding whether or not to copy someone's actions.
The most common and persuasive examples of social learning situations are television commercials. Commercials suggest that drinking a certain beverage or using a particular hair shampoo will make us popular and win the admiration of attractive people. Depending on the component processes involved, such as attention and motivation, we may model the behavior shown in the commercial and buy the product being advertised. The second theory that Bandura formulated is the mediational process. There are 4 components that complete the mediational process.
The first component is attention. This is the extent to which we are exposed and notice the behavior. For a behavior to be imitated, it must grab our attention. We observe many behaviors on a daily basis, and many of these are not noteworthy. Attention is therefore extremely important in whether a behavior has an influence and others imitating it.
The second component is retention, which is how well the behavior is remembered. The behavior may be noticed but is not always remembered, which obviously prevents imitation. It is important, therefore, that a memory of the behavior is formed to be performed later by the observer. Much of social learning is not immediate, so this process is especially vital in those cases. Even if the behavior is reproduced shortly after seeing it, there needs to be a memory to refer to.
The third component is reproduction, which is the ability to perform the behavior that the model has just demonstrated. We see a lot of behavior on a daily basis that we would like to be able to imitate, but that is not always possible. We are limited by our physical ability, and for that reason, even if we wish to reproduce the behavior, we cannot. This influences our decisions whether to try and imitate the behavior or not. Imagine the scenario of a 90-year-old lady who struggles to walk, watching Dancing on Ice. She may appreciate that the skill is a desirable one, but she will not attempt to imitate it because she physically cannot do so.
The last component is motivation. This is the will to perform the behavior. The reward and punishment that follow the behavior will be considered by the observer. If the perceived reward outweighs the perceived costs, then the behavior will more likely be imitated by the observer. If the vicarious reinforcement is not seen important enough to the observer, then they will not imitate the behavior.
How has Bandura's theory affected the way we learn in today's classrooms? They help us to understand children, how they react to things and situations, their behavior, and the ways they learn. Different theories and ways of working with children have come together to provide frameworks for children's care, such as early years foundation stage, which is used within all child care settings. This encourages us to work together to help and check the development of babies, children, and young people, and to keep them healthy and safe.
An argument about Bandura's social learning theory is that it cannot account for how we develop a whole range of behavior, including thoughts and feelings. Because of this reason, Bandura modified his theory in 1986 to social cognitive theory as a better description of how we learn from our social experiences. However, it is still not a full explanation for all behavior. This is mainly the case where there is no apparent role model in a person's life to imitate for a given behavior.
That Bandura's theory can be implemented into the classroom. We can find many great ideas on how we can help students learn and grow in the classroom. A concrete example for his theory is role-playing, where the teacher sets a good example and shows the students appropriate behavior for life settings, especially those dealing with others. There are a few different group assignments that are given to help the students learn to work well with others and to come to a mutual agreement. These group assignments include, but are not limited to, group test taking, where the students are able to work together to collaborate on answers and learn from one another. There are many other group assignments where students who may have behavioral issues can observe, learn, and imitate the good examples from their peers.